In this video, I am going to go over how I usually play during the early game as Zerg against AI opponents of any difficulty. I usually don't play against real players because that is stressful, and I play Starcraft 2 to relax. That being said, I played many games over the years, so the methods I explain here works if you're also playing this sort of game mode. Here I am playing a game on the map BR Forgotten Sanctuary, 6 versus 6 against AI with zombies. If you're not familiar with ZombieBounty, what it is a mod that spawns zombies in the middle of the map, and after 2 minutes or so, those zombies start attacking your base. The zombies spawn at regular intervals and never stop spawning until the game is over. In a versus AI game with zombies, the opposing AI is usually allied with the zombies, won't fight them, and might even share vision with them. The reason I'm making this video is because I've seen so many players mess up the early game and end up getting defeated. They usually don't have enough defense. They just go straight to expanding and building 1 or even 2 new bases before they even have a defense. I mean, come on, this is a game about war, not business tycoon. The goal is to win the war, not get as rich as you can, only to lose it all when the enemy ransacks your base. If you're into that sort of masochism, hey, you do you. This video is for those who want to win the game as it is intended to be played. To quickly explain what these numbers over my hatchery means, a ZombieBounty game will have parameters appearing over your base. The 1x refers to the health multiplier for the zombies. If it were to say be 2x, the zombies would have twice as much health and significantly more difficult to fend off. The 20-10 refers to the amount of minerals and gas you get when killing a zombie, respectively. This allows you to still gain more resources while holding a defensive posture without having to expand. Finally, it will also tell you the unit restrictions. Here it says no unit restrictions, but there may be games where air units are disabled, for instance, so you can only build ground combat units, although you can still build support air units. The first thing I do when I start a game as Zerg is build a couple of drones as soon as I can afford it. This maxes out the supply of 14. Next, I build a spawning pool. The spawning pool will allow you to build spine crawlers, evolve your hatchery into a lair, and build queens. If you have an enemy AI player nearby, they might randomly send the bulk of their workers to attack your base. If they do, don't panic. Just select all of your workers, dump all the minerals they are holding into the base, and position them to counterattack. You have the advantage of numbers and will almost always win. If you want, you can then send your workers to take out the remaining enemy workers, although this is not necessary. The advantage is if you can take out all their workers at this early stage, you've basically eliminated that player from the game. The disadvantage is that you're behind in resource collection, and there are still other players and zombies to defend against. If it appears like you don't have a numbers advantage, you should back off. You don't want your workers wiped. Your spawning pool should be completed by now. Your next goal should be to build spine crawlers. You can start with 2 or 3, but you want to end up with at least 4 before the zombies attack, if the zombie bounty health multiplier is 1x. If the multiplier is 2x, you want at least 6 spine crawlers, but preferably more, like 8. You can send build commands for multiple spine crawlers quickly by first selecting several drones, and with the spine crawler build mode selected, while holding down shift, click on the map locations where you want the spine crawlers. Note that once you start building a spine crawler, nearby enemy AI will send their workers to attack you. Well, you can't not build spine crawlers, so use this as an opportunity to take out their workers. Once you have a good amount of spine crawlers, your next goal is to upgrade your hatchery. Building those spine crawlers costs minerals and drones, so you should keep pumping out more drones and let your mining limit cap out before sending drones to collect gas. Our allies' base is threatened. As soon as your gas hits 100, start upgrading your hatchery. The early game is all about how fast you can build up, so spend those resources and don't let them sit unused. Start building your second extractor and sending drones to it until all of your starting base's resource mining capacities are capped. You'll need a lot of gas later on in the game. The goal of upgrading your hatchery is to eventually to be able to build lurkers. Lurkers will bolster the defense of your base as they can be hidden underground and cannot be targeted by enemies unless detected, while dishing a large amount of area damage. This complements the spine crawlers being single target attackers so that you can more effectively defeat mobs. Just think about it. If a lurker can hit 5 zerglings in one single attack, that's 5 times the damage compared to if it only hits 1 zergling.
Base is threatened. Spawn. Our allies' base is threatened.
In order to build lurkers, you will first need to build a hydralisk den, and then a lurker den. The lurkers are upgraded from hydralisks, so after the hatchery has upgraded to a lair, build a hydralisk den. You'll also need more larvae to ramp up your unit production, so build a queen at your lair. Build overlords as needed. If you have minerals to spare, build 1 or 2 evolution chambers. This will allow you to upgrade your unit's damage and defense. Once the hydralisk den is built, start building a lurker den. Start building hydralisks until you have about 3 to 5. When your queen is built, plant larva eggs at your lair. The eggs will hatch once the cooldown timer finishes, and then immediately grant you 3 larvae on top of the ones produced at the base. I like to put my bases in command group 1 by selecting it and hitting Control 1, and the queens in command group 2 so that I can quickly spawn units and plant larvae.
Allies' base is threatened.
Eventually, the queen will build up surplus energy, which can then be used to spawn creep tumors. The creep tumors will allow you to push your defensive line up. If you can spare the resources, build an infestation pit, which will be needed to upgrade your lair to a hive. This will then unlock the maximum upgrades for your units.
Metamorphosis. Our allies are in combat. Our allies' base is threatened.
The ideal defensive position is near a choke point, preferably with a ramp where you're defending from a higher ground. Pushing up entails unburrowing your spine crawlers and lurkers, which makes them vulnerable. So don't start pushing up until you've built up more of them and bolstered their numbers, preferably double the starting amount of 4 spine crawlers and 4 lurkers. When you do push up, do so in a frog leap manner, where half of your defense stays in place while the other half repositions. This is the Starcraft equivalent of a bounding Overwatch, for those who are familiar with military tactics. At this point, you have a solid defense. Usually, Starcraft maps will allow a choke point that defends an enclosed area with multiple expansions. Here we have 3 expansions on top of our starting area. Start expanding to a second base, as you'll need the resources to build your mega army. Keep bolstering the numbers of your defense with the intent of holding off an attack from a unified force consisting of armies from multiple players as well as the zombies themselves. Build a few spore crawlers for detection and for deterring enemy air units. Once you have an impenetrable defense, 9 times out of 10, you pretty much won the game against AI. That is assuming you don't recklessly attack and fight losing battles and waste your units. The enemy AI isn't smart enough to try and get around the defense by, say, airdropping or massing air units, so it's a straightforward win from here. Your goal is to max out your unit supply with combat units that you will be going on the offensive with, and maxing out their upgrades. If you're playing a no-unit restrictions game, building broodlords will give you a straightforward win. If it is a no-air game, then what I like to do is build swarm hosts and support them with hydralisks and lurkers. The swarm hosts allow an infinite supply of free locusts that will just keep hitting the enemy armies and bases until they are out of resources. Roaches and ultralisks are good options if you want to try and win the game sooner than later. Zerglings are good against undefended opponents, but do not fare well against combatants. Mutalisks are also an option if you want to be that guy.
Allies' base is threatened.